Right, welcome back. Having finished with the Celery and sending your emails, the next vital thing we need to look at is testing. So every good developer should know how to test. And one comprehensive tool that we use for testing is Django Test. And with Django Test, we can write code for what we call test cases to actually check if all of what we've done actually works. So for the purpose of this section, we're going to just write two tests. One to test the model for creating our post, and then two to test our API to ensure that it works, right? Now, ensure that whatever you're doing is actually, remember we're trying to test for this model. So you can test your model and ensure that it works well, and then you can test your endpoint, ensuring that the client or the front end that's going to consume it is not going to encounter any challenge. Let's get right into it. So you're going to go to your test file. It should be within your app. Then from there, you create your class. Let's call this model. Let's say post model test. Then we're going to inherit test case from Django test. Remove this so I could explain it. So from there, you have your setup. This setup is what you use to do some initial processing, like the name implies setup. So, like in this case, we're going to create the user. So we have a user object create, then password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Then from there, let's say have our email. Then email we have, let's say, test user at Gmail, right? Okay, so from there, let's import this out from, right, okay, perfect import from Django contrib, right? So having done this, the next thing we do is to now try creating our post. Then we're going to also define a user that is going to create the post, and or rather, sorry, we'll have to pass this so we can use it again. So this is the user we're going to use to create the post. So we remember we have from the models, we need the title, we need the content, and then we need the author. So on our test, that's what we're going to pass in. So we're going to have here self.user, and let's call it test title, then test content. From here, we've written our simple test, and from there we can now do what we call assert equal to check if this and this is equal. And if they are equal, of course, it means that our test passed. So from this post, if it has created, the assumption is this: if this is successful, it means you've created a post. And if you've created a post, it means what I gave you here should actually be equal to what I am passing. Now let's do self dot assert equal. So we're going to check this post that we've created. Your title, is it same with the title I have here? So that's one. So we're going to also check the content. Is it same with the content I have passed? So having done this, we now go ahead to run our test. Python manage the py. You use test rather. You can see one test 0.002 seconds, and okay, meaning this passes our test. Right, so let's go ahead and write the test case for API test post. Let's call, since we're doing particularly for API test case, so we're going to import REST frameworks test case from REST framework dot test. import API test case. So with that, remember your setup, then we would want to create a user. So remember that for posts to be created, you need to be authenticated, right? So with that, because of that, we actually are going to create a user, call it self dot user. It could be user. So the request needs to be authenticated. So this should draw us back to our settings. If you think back, you remember that the authentication class we gave to Django is token authentication. So we need to pass in a token to authenticate the user. Remember how we did on the Django REST framework page where we had mod header to authenticate our request. So we're going to call auth token and create a token for the user. Make sure you import your token. Then from there, we're going to authenticate the user self dot client dot credentials. This is how to authenticate with token. So we're going to say HTTP authorization equals token. Remember how we do it? Token dot key, right? So from there, we have our user authenticated. So we're going to have test post creation. Then we have to, of course, do a test. We pass in the data like you do your request, right? So we have API post, this, and let's proceed. That is, we're going to try to get the response. The static code is it 201. The objects.count is it 1. So let's try it out. This count, I wouldn't want to do this. Okay, let's go ahead and see how you why. So once we run our test, we ran 2 tests, then 1 failed, right? So on our assert response.status code, we have expected 201, but we got 405. 405 means forbid, or 405 means not allowed. So in case you're confused, you can actually check out 405 status code, right? Not allowed. You can see the status code not allowed. You can also reference or see other status code, 404 not found, and the rest of them. You can look up that to see all the different status code that exist and how to utilize it effectively and know what each of them imply. Now back to our test. So we can see that it says that our 405 means not supported, method not supported. And remember, we're sending a post already here. This is where you make your request. And we're seeing that 405, which is not allowed. It means there's something wrong with the endpoint we're using. So let's trace it. The API, we have API here. Then we used posts. Let's check this out. Oh, you can see the reason. However, this is meant to be a get. So on our URLs, what we were meant to use is post which supports creation. So this is what we're meant to use, which is this end point, not that. So we're using the wrong endpoint. So let's quickly update that. There's a test. So we'll quickly update this, right? So we'll quickly update this and run our test again. Okay, we had another fail. Let's get back to our test. We had another fail, which is 404 not found as against total. Now, the other thing is we need to make sure if our create is actually returning a response code, right? So because we're customizing this, we didn't send an exact response. Let's remove that for now. If others doesn't work, we know that something is wrong with our code, right? So let's run the test again. Right, 0 is not equals to. Now, which means that we have the 404 not found was actually giving us an information, which means this endpoint is likely not found. So you remember, that reminds me, what we have here is API. So it's meant to be API, right? Sorry, on our test. It's meant to be API slash this. So let's run our test again. Oh, we still have not found. Our API URL is still not correct.